Hello and welcome back. This is going to be the second one in my series about Russian logistics, and, well, they suck. From the Telegraph, Vladimir Putin admits Russia can't supply clothing to frontline troops. Vladimir Putin has admitted that there have been problems procuring equipment and clothing for the hundreds of thousands of men called up to fight in Ukraine. Some 300,000 were called up in the autumn as part of the Russian president's partial mobilization, but the draft has been plagued by accusations of substandard equipment and shortages. Mr. Putin asserted that some of the issues have related to the supplies men were now easing. I guess that means at least they get 2 boots of the same size. Reuters, burning through ammo. Russia using 40-year-old rounds, U.S. official said. Russia is turning to decades-old ammunition with high failure rates as it burns through its stockpiles to carry out its nearly 10-month invasion of Ukraine, a senior U.S. military official said on Monday. They have drawn from its aging ammunition stockpile, which does indicate they're willing to use that older ammunition, some of which was originally produced more than 40 years ago, the military official said, speaking on condition of anonymity. In other words, you load your ammunition, you cross your finger and hope it's going to fire, and when it lands that it's going to explode. That's not good. From the Kyiv Independent, Ukrainian intelligence. Russia using more newly produced missiles as existing stockpiles run low. Russia is continuing to burn through its strategic missile stockpiles and are now firing more and more new missiles, with some produced as late as August, according to Vadim Skibitsky, a representative of the Ukrainian Defense Ministry's intelligence directorate. Skibitsky said such assessments suggest that some missiles are being used directly from the assembly line. He said that for now, Russia has enough reserves to continue to bombard Ukraine, but was negotiating to receive missiles from other nations, including Iran. The intelligence directorate hasn't recorded any such deliveries so far. According to Skibitsky, Russia's capacity to sustain mass missile attacks in the long run depends heavily on domestic production. Business Insider, Russia is tearing through its munitions stockpile faster than it can refill them, top U.S. intel chief says. Russian forces are expending their stockpiles of munitions at a greater speed than the country's arms makers can replenish them, the top U.S. intelligence official said recently. Avril Haines, the director of national intelligence, said Russia is burning through its munitions stockpiles, quote, quite quickly. I mean, it's pretty extraordinary, and our own sense is that they are not capable of indigenously producing what they are expending at this stage. So that's what's going to be a challenge, and that is why you see them going to other countries effectively to try to get ammunition. And of course, we've indicated that their precision munitions are running out much faster. In many respects, they have a lot of stockpiles. How viable those stockpiles are, how much they have, and what they can use in different conflicts are obviously all questions that we look at quite carefully with our allies and partners. U.S. officials said that while Russia has turned to pariah governments such as Iran and North Korea for weapons and military hardware, Haines said of the transfer of weapons to North Korea on Saturday, we've indicated we've seen some movement, but it's not been a lot at this stage, and it is some of the ones we're watching quite carefully because it would be significant potentially. We've also seen Russians looking for other types of precision munitions from Iran. It will be very concerning in terms of their capacity more than generally. From Newsweek, Russia scrambling to obtain hundreds of Iranian ballistic missiles. Russia has turned to Iran for missiles to attack Iranian infrastructure, British defense officials have said. The UK's Ministry of Defense said on Saturday that Russia had probably used up a large number of its own SS-26 Iskander short-range ballistic missiles, which are capable of carrying an 1,100-pound warhead up to 300 miles. So Russia is likely to be offering Iran, quote, an unprecedented level of military and technical support, which is transforming their defense relationship, the defense official said. In its daily assessment, the MOD said that if Russia managed to bring Iranian missiles into service, quote, it will likely use them to continue and expand its campaign of strikes against Ukraine's critical national infrastructure. Key to this campaign has been the use of Iranian-made Shahed-36 unmanned aerial vehicles, also known as kamikaze drones. But Russia has reportedly struck a deal with Iran in September for Tehran to supply other weapons such as the Fatah 110 and Zulfiqar missiles. With a range of 200 miles, the Fatah 10 can travel up to 3,800 miles an hour and hit targets with an accuracy of about 16 to 32 feet, according to Military Today. However, it is still able to launch operationally significant attacks, and a report by Conflict Armament Research, CAR, this week found that Russia was producing cruise missiles with imported components. Remnants of KH-101 cruise missiles were marked by codes that indicate they were produced in the summer and fall of 2022, Carr said. Michael Kaufman, director of Russia Studies at the Center for Naval Analysis, told the War on the Rocks podcast on Thursday that Moscow may have dwindling cruise missile supplies but have larger stocks and a higher rate of monthly production than experts had estimated. Even though the numbers they are making are still quite anemic relative to what they are using, nonetheless they could probably sustain these strikes for some time. The Russian military can keep making missiles. They have mobilized production and gone to double and triple shift in a lot of plants, he said. From the Telegraph, Russia to send Iran top fighter jets in return for kamikaze drones. Iran is to receive top-of-the-range fighter jets from Russia within the next year in exchange for kamikaze drones sent to the battlefield in Ukraine, U.S. sources said Friday night. Downing Street and the White House warned that new sordid deals amount to a large-scale military partnership between Tehran and Moscow. The U.S. later warned that Russia was expanding and modernizing its nuclear arsenal, already the largest in the world. Russia is planning to send Tehran advanced military equipment and components, including helicopters and air defense systems, one U.S. intelligence source said. Biden administration officials have said Iranian pilots are already being trained in Russia on how to fly the Sukhoi Su-35 fighter jet, indicating Iran may be receiving the aircraft within the next year. Speculation has swirled that Moscow redirects some 24 Su-35 jets currently grounded in Russia after an Egyptian order for them was canceled. The fighter jets would represent a significant modernization of Iran's aging air force and would increase the threat posed by Iran across the Middle East and to Israel. This is all very comforting thoughts, don't you think? That Russia is willing to buy a missile with shorter range than the one that they're using, the Iskander. The Fatah only has 200-mile range. Iskander has a 300-mile range. And then, in-kind trading with someone that can potentially be an enemy in the not distant future is, well, it screams of desperation that Putin's intelligence staff was too scared to tell him the truth, that the Ukrainians are better trained and probably have access to better equipment than we can put up against them. It brings to mind a story about Saddam Hussein when it looked like they were going to be in a really tough spot, possibly losing the Iran-Iraq war, because Iran said that it was going to be regime change or they wouldn't stop the war. One of his ministers suggested something not totally insane, that he announces that he's stepping down, but still maintains in control through a mouthpiece, pretty much what Putin did with Medvedev. And as soon as they came to an agreement on ceasefire and, peace talks, once all that was covered up, was settled, that he resumed back in power. Not a bad play, actually. When he asked the rest of his ministers if any of them thought that was a good idea, for a show of hands, none of the rest did. So he stood up and asked that minister to come out in the hall with him. Went out in the hall, he shot the minister in the head and told his guards to get rid of the body. Came back in, and now let's talk about winning a war. Very much the same mindset here with Putin. We can't lose. Well, yeah, you can. Anybody who thinks that they're guaranteed to win a war hasn't really fought in one. He can't supply his troops. He called up 300,000 men. Couldn't give them much more than uniforms and worn-out rusty rifles. And then, actually, about a month later, the fall conscription took place where they had the semi-annual draft of 150,000 men. So we got 450,000 men coming in a short time, where he has to clothe, feed, and equip. And he was lucky to clothe and equip. Well, clothe the 300,000, which drew down stores for the 150,000 who were going in for their 1-year mandatory service. They're burning through missiles like no tomorrow. They're going to give away 24 at least Su-35s, and not for the missiles, but for the Shahed 136 drones. weapons. That seems like paying $1 for penny candy. But when you're desperate, you're that desperate. There were reports that they were firing off, they were taking nuclear cruise missiles, taking the nuclear warheads off of them, replacing them with ballast weight and firing them off as decoys, hoping that the only thing the Ukrainians would shoot down would be the decoys, because even with an 800 or 1,000, 2,000 pound ballast weight, the only damage it's going to do is maybe knock a hole in a wall, and what fire you're going to get from unexpended fuel. Nothing like what you're going to get from the actual cruise missile. So this is desperation. He's made comments recently that he's still thinking about using nukes in Ukraine after he said he wasn't going to use nukes in Ukraine. The man is insane. The rumors about his health are still going around. I don't know if any of it's true or not, but it might explain his thinking of wanting to rebuild the Russian Empire before he dies. At this rate, he's losing in Ukraine, so the Russians have a bad habit of how they deal with national leaders who lose wars. They shoot them. They kill them off. So whether he wins the war or not, if the rumors of his health are true, he's going to be dead pretty soon anyways. In fact, for being a teetotaler, there were reports that he appeared drunk recently at an event. For somebody who supposedly doesn't drink, makes me wonder if he's either taken up the habit or if it was because of medications he's taking for his health. I don't know. Wouldn't bother me to see the old communist kick off. I'll be honest with you. Probably be a good thing be good for us. It'd be probably great for Russia. Hopefully this will end soon. The scary part is that it may end up with an armed rebellion. There have been stories leaked out about companies and battalions refusing to deploy because they don't have any equipment. They've just got their rifles and the clothes they were issued. No cold weather gear, no tents, nothing. And so you're going to the front lines, and they're saying, no, we're not. The scary part of it is that in 1917, it wasn't a country that had nuclear weapons. So all we would really need is another Russian civil war with one or both sides having access to tactical or strategic nukes. Might not hurt us in the U.S. too much, but it wouldn't do Europe any good at all. Well, I just hope that they can settle it without setting up mushroom clouds all over the place. Oh, hey, I'm out of here. Thanks for hearing me out. Thanks for watching. Please comment. You think I'm crazy? Well, tell me so. I'd like to hear what you're thinking. And stay safe, and I'll see you later.